I'm Kevin Rinke, and I'd like to welcome you to Beyond the Echo. I ran for governor in Michigan. After losing that election, my desire to look at issues that are important to the state or the country grew. There is so much static. There are so many opinions. Our news stations have gotten to the point where we don't know what news is anymore. Where do you go to get real facts? This is about real perspective for you. Beyond the Echo will cut through all the smoke, all the opinions. It's not about Republicans. It's not about Democrats. It's about the issues and what are real. Hi, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Echo. And today we're going to talk about some of the laws that have been passed, some laws that are expiring or that were affected by recent court decisions, and how it might impact the Michigan business community, small businesses, how it might impact you on Beyond the Echo.
So, obviously, there's a minimum wage increase in Michigan happening. First time in a while, I think, but it's happening here in February. So how do you think Gretchen Whitmer's minimum wage increase is going to affect small businesses in Michigan, and how will it affect the economy as well?
Well, it only makes sense that when it becomes a mandate that businesses pay more for their employees and services, and that mandate comes from the government, that costs go up. And I don't know anybody in Michigan, who thinks right now that living in Michigan is a good value. All of our costs are up. The cost of eggs, a well-intended program, they're up. Our property taxes, they're up. Our income taxes, they're up. The cost for transportation and insurance, it's up. And each one of these segments, interestingly enough, Lansing was involved with. Auto insurance. If you give up what the best benefits were in the country, the personal injury protection that we used to have that was required in Michigan under auto no fault, we're going to lower our rates. And Gretchen Whitmer signed that bill. Well, guess what? Michigan still has one of the 3 highest auto insurance rates in the country. Oops, Lansing, either you didn't know what you were doing or you lied. Which one is it? 2 bad choices. But look the people in the eye and tell them, did you lie or were you just unqualified to make the decision? Eggs. We're going to characterize how eggs need to be laid by the chickens and the chicken farmers. I don't know why state government needed to get involved, but who's buying the eggs? And what is that change going to do to the price of eggs? Price is going up. Me, that's a big deal because I eat eggs. I love eggs. My favorite sandwich is a great toasted egg salad sandwich. So my cost of living just went up. Getting rid of the exemption for restaurant workers to have a lower minimum wage. In America, tipping is a big deal. You go to other parts of the world and guess what? They don't have tipping. Now, they don't eat out as often as we do. They don't have access to the social and the food options that we do. But tipping is not a part of their society. And by eliminating that exemption and increasing the cost, who ultimately bears the expense? You do. I do. The citizens do. And if we're trying to lower the cost of living in Michigan, why do we keep making bad decisions that increase the cost? It's a reasonable question to ask. And if you don't ask it, you're fooling yourself. Isn't it interesting that since COVID, now when you go to a place, even for carryout, they want you to tip. Everybody wants a tip now. And it used to be that it was considered appropriate to tip at 10 or 15%. Well, now the computer offers 20, 25, 30%. The delivery guy that you are paying for Uber to deliver it, you are paying the full price, is really angry with you if you don't tip them 5, 10, 15 bucks for your cold pizza or your soggy sandwich. And we got to get a perspective back in place, because we have expendable income in America that other places don't have. And we have all these rules and regulations already that, here's what I give a proposal to. We should go in, and if we eliminated 50% of the regulations on farmers and implemented this egg program, the consumers could come out ahead. If we eliminated 50% of the regulations on small business owners, the concept of increases in minimum wage wouldn't be an issue. But see, government wants it both ways. And many times there's a backdoor agenda to it, I believe, because Michigan is a highly unionized state. Very strong union leadership. Personally, I think unions in their proper perspective are great, but I think many unions have lost kind of their way, and they are trying to grow their membership. And to grow membership, you have to create either division, distrust, or a situation that says, I need someone else who can negotiate for me. So, hypothetically, let's say we raise the minimum wage, and the wait staffs and the bussers and the dishwashers' income goes down because the cost of a cocktail goes up another buck or two. The cost of a burger goes up another buck or two. French fries. We've already got, high food costs, high service costs. We're experiencing some crazy stuff. And I think that the unions will look at that as an opportunity and say, well, we'll represent you because now you're upset that your income went down. And if you unionize, we'll get your income up. Well, income can only go up if the business is successful. And since we have focused on service industries, those are optional. You do not need to go to Starbucks for your cup of coffee.
Right.
In my lifetime, and I'm not that old, a cup of coffee was 5 cents. In my lifetime, 5 cents. Okay? You ain't getting that at Starbucks.
Nope.
And oh, by the way, Starbucks is unionized. You can choose not to go to Starbucks. I had a friend of mine whose family stopped going to Starbucks. and they recorded what their difference in expenses was. It was over $12,000.
Annually?
Yeah,
Wow.
for Starbucks.
Wow.
$12,000.
That's an addiction.
Well,
But it's probably more common than we realize.
yeah, it absolutely it is. You got 5 family members that can drink coffee, and now it's not just coffee. You want your sous vide eggs, you want your roll, you want your iced coffee, you want your chai tea, you want your green tea Starbucks style. Maybe you just want to jam with the baristas, who are always so pleasant and give you the language of I don't know what, you know. I'd love to piss them off on the rare occasion that I go to Starbucks and they say, would you like a grande or a venti or a whatever else they call it? And I say, I'll take a large, please. Whatever that is in your lingo, I'll take a large.
Just that one.
But it's usually when someone else is buying, I got to be honest with you, because
Yeah.
I won't spend a penny in that joint.
Yeah. Well, you said something that should be common sense, in that if wages go up, then the cost goes up. And it seems to me a lot of people don't understand that concept. Prior to COVID, my average wage here at my company was about $12 to $13 an hour, and people were happy to make that. We never paid minimum wage here. We always paid more. But now my average wage is closer to $20 an hour, $18 to $20 an hour, and people can't survive on that.
Yeah.
They used to be able to survive on. So we've increased the wages, it caused me to have to increase the price of everything that we do. And
I wanted to talk to you about that, by the way. Things are getting a little expensive.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Let's bring the wages down. Well, yeah, I mean, but my employees don't live as comfortably as they used to in some cases. And so why is that such a concept? Why is that? Is it legislators that have a hard time understanding that? Why do people have such a hard time understanding that concept?
Well, I think that you have the perfect storm that's developed in America. And I'm going to go back to the free trade agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And Donald Trump wanted to renegotiate that, which was the right thing to do. Wages going up in a closed market is not a problem, because lifestyles will incrementally follow that. But when you have a free market and government interjects on a percentage of the market, then it gets out of whack. So government's well-intended, even though I can't find anywhere in any constitution where it says that the government should establish a minimum wage. Not in the Constitution.
Right.
There are laws that were created, but I don't even think that role for government should be applied, as silly as that may sound. You're running a small business. I ran a small business. To get the best people, I had to understand my market and pay that wage or create benefits, create an environment for them to be successful in.
Right.
And rules and regulations limit an entrepreneur's ability to be creative.
100%.
And the consumer bears the brunt of it. All of these ideas sound great, if you're the benefactor of it, until you realize that, well, wait a minute, everything else went up too, so I'm still getting less. And when I was talking about the perfect storm, we have had years of a educational decrease. We have had an exodus of manufacturing jobs to other countries that supposedly can do it better, as we've tried to, equalize the world. And who has suffered at that? America. For the first time in America's history, we've had to start to import foods to meet the needs. We don't produce enough food in America anymore to support our people. In my life in Michigan, I never thought cherry farmers were going to be going out of business. The best cherries in the world, the best cherry pie, great apples. And because we're bringing them in from other countries, you know, cherry farms are declining, apple farms. What we grow, we have farmers that aren't growing to produce things for Americans to consume. They are growing things to ship to other countries. And it's a byproduct of regulations. It's a byproduct of government interjecting itself into businesses, and entrepreneurs respond. They figure out a way to survive. I'm going to give you an example that I think a lot of small business owners are going to consider with this new paid time off. And for those folks out there, they're getting ready to implement a law that gives an employee 10 days of paid time off. Mandatory. Government says you got to do it. So it would be easy for me to go to how entrepreneurs are going to respond to it, but I want to talk about a buddy of mine who owns a trucking company in Michigan. And he runs a number of trucks, and those trucks create X number of dollars of business per day, right? So he has a full benefits package for his truck drivers: health care, medical care, vacation pay, pension. He's doing what an entrepreneur does to employ good people, to provide them a lifetime. They pay taxes. They help our economy. So now the government comes in and says, you have to give these people an additional 10 days of paid time off. And in his company's case, with today's employees, he just took a $1.5 million hit to his business. No longer does it make sense potentially for him to do business in Michigan based on that law. Or because he's got a business in Michigan, because he's got assets here, because he cares about his employees, he says, well, what are the things that I can do to survive? And he can raise his prices to cover now that $1.5 million hit. Well, what does that do for the consumer? Everything he touches, when the consumer buys it, is more expensive. Is that what the government intended? Or he can say, you know what? And I think you're going to see this a lot with small business. We're going to do away with vacation time. Because a lot of companies, you get 2 weeks a year paid off. So now you axe your vacation time. And think of the value. Think of you're working a job and you get 2 weeks of vacation, and you schedule your vacation and you get to spend it with your wife and your family and your friends 1 week at a time. And you get paid for that. And it's wonderful. Well, that might go away. If you got sick, and let's say you're single and you say, geez, I really don't want that vacation time. Or I don't have a wife. I'm not going to go anywhere. Maybe I can't afford to go anywhere. That 2 weeks of paid vacation is actually a bonus for you. But that will be eliminated. And maybe because it's tougher to get people employed, businesses will start to say, you know what? you get 10 days of paid time off, but we're no longer going to allow you to take them a week at a time. So you may be happy that now you get 10 3-day weekends if it works out. You know, how should it be okay? How do you run a business when the legislature says, oh, you get paid sick time and you don't have to call in for 3 days? And oh, by the way, if your boss makes you go to the doctor to prove that you are sick, the business has to pay for the trip. Isn't that socialism?
Seems like it.
Isn't that communism?
It's not capitalism.
It certainly isn't capitalism. And oh, by the way, again, the perfect storm. When we put in NAFTA, when we said we were going to transition to a service economy, there was a consequence to that. And I actually, that happened under both Republican leadership as well as implemented fully under Democratic leadership. There was a problem with it. And you know what the problem was for me? It allowed us to give up on our people. What do I mean by that? We said that the service industry offers an opportunity for people who are unqualified to do more technical jobs. And, hey, you can go and you can make French fries, or hey, you can make a sub sandwich, or hey, you can do this service job. Our education plummeted. And minimum wage jobs were never designed to be living wages. The next step is, oh, you got to pay a living wage. Well, just out of curiosity, who establishes what the standard of a living wage is? Some people can live in a tent. So maybe $12 an hour if you're a tent liver? Or should it be $14 an hour if you want to live in a doghouse? Maybe $16 to live in somebody's garage. And all this sounds ridiculous, but you know what? I bet you there's a politician out there that would say, wow, that's a great idea. Entry-level jobs shouldn't be an American's goal in life. And yes, there are a percentage of Americans who will never be able to do more than an entry-level job. Sorry, that's a reality. We need to minimize that percentage. And oh, by the way, maybe they need to work 2 jobs because that's what Americans do. You don't rely on the government and say, take care of me. That's not the right thing. I mean, heck, I used to have 2 jobs. And why did I have 2 jobs? Not because I love working. It's because it's what I needed to do to meet my financial obligations. But hell, we've got a president that says you shouldn't have to pay back your loan. And we've implemented all sorts of giveaways that make you dependent on who? The government. I don't want to be dependent on the government. I don't think the people of Michigan want to be dependent on the government. So, rules and regulations that have long-term impact. The minimum tip wage for restaurant workers, they estimate it will cost the state of Michigan 60,000 jobs. But let's look at a bigger picture. Part of that problem is 60,000 people who would be paying tax. Okay? The fastest growing population segment in Michigan is 65 and over. So we're eliminating jobs for young people. And that's a problem because those are the earners that are paying the taxes to support the society that politicians are creating. In this class warfare of just tax the rich people more, It doesn't work. I mean, anybody who thinks that way, really, come on. You know, it's easy to think that way, but if you had the motivation or if you had the luck or if you had the skill set to suddenly make more and your focus was to not pay your fair share, I've never minded paying my fair share of
Right.
taxes. I just don't want to get
Don't be penalized for being
penalized.
successful.
Yeah. Uh, that's not American.
And the message that that sends to everybody
Is wrong.
is you work hard, you're going to be penalized.
Yeah.
You become successful, you're going to be penalized. Where's the incentive to grow and work and to take advantage of the opportunities that are available to climb your way up?
Yep. And they exist in America.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody who tells you they don't, they're losers.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so I want to go back a little bit to the minimum wage increase for tip workers.
Yeah.
What kind of effect do you think that's going to have on tipping habits?
Well, for me, I'm already at a point, and thank goodness my hobby's cooking. And my friends and people that hang out with me, I suspect if they want to see me, are going to have to come to my house more often because I'm already feeling the effects of how expensive it is to eat out. And I'm lucky. I'm at the upper end of the spectrum. So I can only imagine how people that aren't as fortunate as myself, how they deal with it. But you go to McDonald's. I went to McDonald's the other day. My family flew on Christmas Day to go skiing. And I have a 27-year-old son, for those of you that don't know, and a 21-year-old daughter. And we flew and landed, and we had an hour and a half drive. And my son goes, "Dad, I'm starving." And my daughter goes, "Yeah, I'm kind of hungry too." So we find a McDonald's to stop. And I don't eat at McDonald's a bunch. And we pull up, and my kid orders, and my daughter orders, and my wife orders, and I order. And the gal goes, "That'll be $58.97. And I started to laugh because I didn't look at anything on the menu from a pricing perspective. I just know that I like filet of fish and crispy chicken. And because it was a 90-minute drive, I got a filet of fish sandwich and a crispy chicken. I don't get the meal deal, but I wanted water. Okay? And my kid wanted 3 meal deals or whatever it was, but he didn't get all 3 drinks. And my daughter wanted, and I started laughing. I said, "Are you kidding me? Are you out of your mind? $58 for McDonald's for 4 people? $15 to eat at a McDonald's?" Again, folks, in my lifetime, they had 25-cent hamburgers. That 25-cent hamburger, I think today, and it's probably the same darn size as it was when I was a kid, was $3.
Yeah.
You know, what are we going to do?
I used to send my kids to an away game. They stop on the way home, send them with a $5 bill. And that was plenty. And now each kid needs $20 pretty much to get a meal and a drink and get into the game. And it's crazy.
I can remember as a kid, and a lot of people won't remember, you might have heard of Saunders Bakery. And Saunders was a very famous bakery in Detroit, and they opened up these little sandwich shops. And trust me, look it up on the internet, a Saunders cream puff. It might be the most delectable thing you would ever eat in your life. It's got fudge. It's got a little baked pastry and vanilla ice cream. Well, when I was a kid, $3 for a tuna fish sandwich and a cream puff. And I got to do that once a month. And that was like, oh God, you sat on the stool right at the counter like the old soda fountains and everything. And some people won't even know what a soda fountain is that we're talking about. But it was $3. Yeah, yeah. That Saunders cream puff. And a lot of restaurants around Metro Detroit still sell it. It's $11 for the cream puff.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. It is
But
crazy.
you still pay it because it's
No,
that good.
no,
It's
I'm
not
going to
that
make
good.
my own
You're gonna
cream
make it.
puff.
Okay.
I'll buy some ice cream,
Yeah.
but I'm not paying it. That's my whole point. And you know who suffers? Because I was a decent tipper.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
if you were a good waiter or waitress, I was a decent tipper. I'm eating out less.
The tip culture has gotten crazy. I mean, literally everywhere you go now, ask for a tip. I was at a Detroit Lions game recently, and you order, 2 waters and a small popcorn, and it's $30, and then ask if you want a tip for that. And I'm like,
At a concession stand?
at the
They ask if you
concession,
want-
just comes up on the thing. How much do you want to tip? After you just paid $30 for 2 waters and a popcorn, and I just thought, this is insane. Why would I tip you? And they literally just grabbed it and handed it to me.
By the way, I
didn't
have
tip.
zero problem hitting the zero button.
Oh, me too. Now I worked in the hospitality industry for many years,
Yep.
so I'm a good tipper typically.
Yep,
But when you're asking for tips for stuff like that, it's gotten out of control.
it is.
But I want to round this thing out. You were, one of the things you talked about when you ran was to eliminate the state income tax.
The personal income
Personal
tax.
income tax. Thank you.
Yep.
So let's round it out by talking about how you would propose to do that, what benefits that might play, and maybe the governor's listening.
Well, if she's listening, she won't like what she hears, because in the last 4 years, the cost of government has gone up. And it's funny how you package it, because numbers lie. 43%. Okay. That's one way of looking at it. But that 43% can almost be almost 100% too, because it was 53 million and now it's 92 million. And then you have long-term obligations for grants that the federal government gives you that don't cover the full expense. So the operating cost of government in Michigan in 2 terms under Gretchen Whitmer has doubled. Okay? $100 billion a year taxpayers are paying in Michigan. Our fastest growing demographic is 65 and older. They're not huge taxpayers. We have declining population until this year. And oh, by the way, we had declining population for citizens, but they counted illegal immigrants in the population base, of which taxpayers will pay for in the census numbers to make it look better. You have a business tax strategy that is forcing businesses to go elsewhere, aka the example that I used about the truck driver who, because of paid sick leave, loses $1.5 million in potential profit. Just that one thing alone, one business, and may leave Michigan because of it. And then you have all these outside companies that say, where do we want to do business if we are looking in the Midwest? Well, you have a declining education system in Michigan. You have an aging population in Michigan. You have an unfavorable tax base in Michigan. Let's go to Michigan, for God's sakes. Not. So I want to do away with the personal income tax, and it averages about $4,300 a person. Not $30, not $29. Oh, when Lansing says you'll save $100 on your auto insurance. No, this is real money. And by the way, It's your money. So I think Lansing should give that up. I think that there are plenty of things that can be cut out of Michigan's budgets. And at the same time, I want people to know, because the first thing that Republicans ask, the first thing that Democrats ask, how are you going to replace the revenue? If you have $4,300 more in your pocket, you're going to spend it. But it's how you choose to spend it versus how the government chooses to spend it. And I happen to think that income and income opportunity is part of that inalienable right that we as citizens of Michigan and citizens of America have. So the 9 states that have repealed personal income tax are all growing dramatically while Michigan falters. The 9 states that have repealed personal income tax, interestingly enough, all have better education scores than Michigan. The 9 states that have repealed personal income tax have growing demographic groups of producers versus non-producers because the business environment is better. The 9 states that don't have personal income tax, interestingly enough, for some reason, their cost of electricity, water, heat, and gas usually are lower than Michigan's as well. It's really funny how that happens. There was a very famous guy that worked with Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump called Art Laffer, and he created the Laffer curve. And it says that when you charge people less taxes, government gets more money because the people use their money the way they want to. And Americans like to spend money. So it's not that complicated, but it's really complicated for those people that are making decisions. Thank you for listening again to Beyond the Echo. I ask that if you hear something on this show that you have questions about, get me on X, get me on Facebook, get me on Snapchat or Twitter, and I'll respond to you. I don't make statements just to make statements. I make observations, and I want to talk about how those things can impact you, impact Michigan. And that's the whole reason for Beyond the Echo. So if I say something that you doubt, fire away. You'll get an answer. If I say something that you like, do me a favor and let me know, because it feels really good. And we'll go from there. But until the next time on Beyond the Echo, take care. Thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Echo. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop us a comment and share the podcast with your friends. Stay connected and keep the conversation going by following us on social media. Until next time, keep exploring Beyond the Echo.